one of the things that led to that really, and the ovarian cyst, the PCOS that popped up for me, and that was horrific to go through, was stress.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to the First Optimal podcast. Really excited for another great guest. We've been super fortunate, and definitely appreciate the audience's engagement too, because it just helps us bring on such great guests. And this is no different with Dr. Beth Westie joining us today. She's got a wide range of knowledge from things around primarily women's hormone health, but a lot of Eastern medicine background, and while she was in grad school, went to school for chiropractic, does a lot of things, some more traditional with nutrition and things, but also other things within the body. So she has a really good understanding of non-traditional US kind of medicine and versus Eastern, and then also how to implement different things at different times. So really excited to unpack the content today, and we'll see where this takes us. So thanks again for joining us.
Yeah. Yay.
So, and I think a couple of things that I really liked was, when we're going through talking about our guests, she's got a really great podcast I would tell everybody about too out there. Female Health Solution podcast. So be sure to check that out. And we'll do all that in the show notes at the end and towards as we wrap up. But as we're kind of getting through this, or just kind of kicking things off, one of the things I like to do, just in case somebody maybe hasn't heard of you or your content, wonder if you can share this wonderful journey of functional medicine, women's health expertise, because it's super, super granular. It's difficult to understand all the things that you do. You definitely have committed a lot of time and resources and effort into this. And so just curious to how did that journey lead you to this?
Yeah. So, thank you for having me. Like, this is so fun. I love having conversations like this. And quick background on me overall. So, and you'll probably hear this in how I talk. I'm from Minnesota. I grew up on a goat farm in Minnesota. That's
okay.
Yep.
About as Minnesota as you get, right? I'm in Michigan, by the way. I don't know if I said that before recording. I'm in Michigan, so.
Oh, I got my undergrad at Northern Michigan University.
Okay.
Good
up
stuff.
In Marquette. Yes. Yeah. Marquette's beautiful in the summer, but a little rough in the winter. But if you're from Minnesota, you can handle the Northern Michigan winters.
Easier winters in Northern Michigan than Minnesota sometimes.
I'm sure everybody's like really excited for me to share this story because it's going to add a ton of value to their life, but I will anyways. My first time to Minnesota, the first two times, let me rephrase that. One was the middle of December, one was early February. And I went to like Northern Minnesota for this conference. Like, it's great out here. You come to this training. It was like to get ready for a promotion. And it's supposed to be like a big celebration. You get off the plane and it was like, even though I was from Michigan, it was just like, you couldn't even move. It was so cold. It was intense, but nonetheless.
Yeah. No, you breathe in and immediately your nostrils freeze.
Yes.
Immediate. Yes. It's different. It's different to live here. Yeah.
What would you say about the word pronunciations? Is it, because I have some friends from Canada as well. Do you think they're similar? There's some differences in the.
Yeah, there's some similarities.
Okay.
We don't say a boot, like
that's true. Yeah.
Most Canadians do. But everything is like every stereotype about it is true. Like bag, roof. My husband is from Vermont, so many times he would tease me about how I speak, and I'd be like, "I'm saying what you're saying." He's like, "Say root beer." I'm like, "Root beer."
Root beer.
Root beer. He's like, "Root beer," and I'm like, "I'm not gonna."
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
people, it's all in where you are, right? So if you leave your area and go there, you're the one with the accent. So it's
I'm the one that talks funny everywhere. Yeah.
It just depends on what. Yeah. So if he's with you in Minnesota, then he's the one with the accent, right?
Totally, 100%.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. We've settled that.
Yeah. But I always mention it just because at some point, during podcasting or something, if I don't say that I'm from Minnesota, people will comment and be like, "I know where you're from." I'm like, right. So I lead with that. So everyone knows. Yeah.
Thank you, Captain Obvious. No.
Yes. Right. And to really be like, no, this This isn't like an act. This is how everybody talks around here. And again, I didn't grow up like in the cities per se. So this is just how it is. So
I have one more example that I will admit I wasn't thinking clearly. I flew out to a training in Minnesota, and this guy, and I'm a diehard U of M fan, like as a little kid, like Michigan fan, Michigan football, and we call it U of M. And he stands up, and this guy's talking. He's like, I played, defensive back, whatever it was for U of M. And I'm like, this guy's from U of M. This is amazing. And then I was like, oh, it's the golfers. I'm like, well, golfers are cool. I was like, yeah, it's fine. I was like, but this whole time I'm like, he's a Wolverine. I'm like, no, it's a different U of M, Joe. Like, but your old head coach at the Golfers was a Michigan native. And actually my wife, I forget her title, but she was like an assistant to the football program. Gary Kill, who was the Gophers head coach for a while, back when he was, she's going to kill me for not remembering, Saginaw. I think it was Saginaw. Yeah. Saginaw Valley State University. She was there for a little while, and Coach Kill was there, and a good friend of our family member of ours played for him. Anyways, so yeah, nice. Little history lesson.
Yeah, no, that's super fun, right? And it's just fun because sometimes in the Midwest, there's all those connections overall.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. I forgot. What are we talking about again today?
So I was born and raised in Minnesota. So a little background on me. That was it.
Yeah.
You can't tell because I'm on a screen, but I am very, very tall. I'm 6'2".
Okay.
So I'm kind of an Amazon of a person. So I was an athlete in high school and college. So 3-sport athlete in high school, got a scholarship to play volleyball at Northern Michigan University, where I got my undergrad. While I was getting my undergrad, I also went to massage therapy school there. So got licensed in massage therapy, moved back to Minnesota for grad school, and worked at Lifetime Fitness while going to school. And then, so when I graduated, I got my doctorate in chiropractic, and then also was licensed in acupuncture and Chinese medicine at the same time, and really brought in a lot of that, like all of the natural healing arts. I really fell in love with it. I was a pre-med student in undergrad and really wanted to pursue medicine in some form, but it was actually going to massage school that opened up my whole world of natural health and natural medicine and everything. And I was like, whoa, this is completely different, and went down that path and loved every step of that journey. Just learning all the different healing forms and arts, studied a ton of Ayurvedic medicine, and my professional journey from there. So I also had my first 2 kids while I was in graduate school. Would not recommend. And then graduated in, I think it was May of 2009. Took boards in June, got licensed, started a business in that September, and then found out I was pregnant again that October. So then I just very busy, right? So I'm a very driven person, right? So, but my youngest was actually born 2 months early. So I had a preemie, a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a brand new business that, I'll be totally honest, was not doing well at the time, because I had a brick and mortar clinic. Didn't know how to run a business very, very well, but was able to turn things around, go from the ground up. And I had that clinic for about 7 years, but that initial time frame with the stress that I was under was so immense that after my youngest was born, I started having ovarian cysts, and they would burst every month. So I'd be treating patients. I'd be in a room and I could feel like the pressure, and all of a sudden I'd have to run into my back room, and like I'd be on the floor just writhing in pain until that initial stabbing pain ended, to kind of move on with my day. And that happened every month for about 1.5 years. I, tried all these other things. I was eating healthy. I'd cut out sugars and alcohol, and, I'm already gluten-free, and cut out dairy and tons of supplements and tons of different things. And nothing was really helping me. And went into different OB visits. And there was one visit where my husband actually had to come to my office and pick me up off the floor and take me to the ER, because I couldn't get up off the floor. And my office manager was like, you need to come get her.
Yeah.
This is a problem. And in the ER, the doc that was there was like, yeah, it's cysts. I was like, right, I know. it's another cyst. What I want to know is why this keeps happening. I didn't have
Right.
cysts before, right? I had 3 kids, 3 healthy kids, aside from the my last one being born early, which was a totally different situation. It was a placental abruption, so very, not a common thing to have happen. But I was like, I don't understand. Why is this happening for me? I'm doing all these things. I'm trying to lead as healthy of a lifestyle as absolutely humanly possible.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be getting cysts. And his only solution for me was Vicodin and birth control.
Mm.
And that's not an answer for me.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, I can't be doped up on Vicodin and treating patients all day. I can't take birth control for the rest of my life. There's other side effects and stuff that go along with that for me. What I want to know why this is happening and what I can do to reverse this. And it was around that same time I'd actually done more continuing education and certification in women's health and hormones and fertility with Chinese medicine.
Mm.
So this is where I started going down that road. And it was really the intense rage that I had from that ER visit, from that guy being like, well, if you're not going to take your birth control, I guess you're just going to have cysts forever. And I was like, oh my God, this is how you talk to people? Are you kidding me?
Right.
It was insane. So I went home and kind of went bananas researching as much as I could in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., looking up everything about hormones and all of that, and then connecting that to the course that I was actually in the middle of taking for fertility, for Eastern medicine, right? For Chinese medicine, fertility, and started bringing in some of those concepts, bringing in like women have different bodies throughout the month. Our hormonal cycle is totally different. Estrogen does something different in our bodies than progesterone. And again, one's not better or worse, but it's different. So to learn how other forms of healing arts deal with women's hormones and how can we shift and change that? So I started doing that for myself, started eating for my cycle, started shifting and changing my nutrients and everything. And then I started applying it to the patients in my clinic. I had gals that were coming in, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I've had a cyst too, or I've had this too, or, my perimenopause is really bad. And I would just handwrite on little scraps of paper, okay, eat these foods this week, go, come back next week and I'll give you a new list. And it grew from there. And it got to a point where I really wanted to dedicate my life to this. So I sold my clinic, jumped into writing a book, speaking, lecturing, doing all this. And then now I work virtually with women all over the world, teaching them, we do hormone testing, but we also talk about nutrition that matches your hormones in your cycle. And then I also have a tincture line of supplements that matches also to help your system regulate your own hormonal production. So awesome. It's not adding hormone. It's about what your body's producing and to help it produce and maintain the right amount for you. So,
yeah, no, I mean, I think obviously in the moment, right, it's always not great, but I always like those stories when it's pushes someone through to find solutions to dive into that. So they can, not only they fix their stuff and then it kind of organically happens where this worked for me, try it. And then they kind of like, I'm onto something here. It's, I know we're going to get into it later, but one of the testing we're going to talk about later, I found it 6 or 7 years ago myself, where I had some women in my family that were having methylation issues. I didn't know that even what that word was back then. And it was like, your blood work shows your estrogen production is low, but you have estrogen dominant symptoms. Like, I'm not an expert here on that specifically at the time. It was 7, 8 years ago. I said, but that doesn't make sense. So like, what is going on? And we'll get into that later more, but I just think it's great for people to know that too. Like, hey, been there, done that, went through the process. Like, this is stuff that I've actually done, or I've seen a lot of people do, and working through those detailed nuances. But I'm curious, like, I know we're kind of painting with a broad brush here, but as women are coming in to see you, is there one or two like common themes to what you're seeing out there, or regionally maybe, like, hey, in the US I see this more, and then in Europe I see this more? Just kind of with your view being, as you mentioned, like globally, like, what are some things maybe that you're seeing that you could share?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many hormonal issues and symptoms that women have that we're just told to, I mean, it's the exact story that I had. Oh, take a birth control or take some type of hormone that's going to suppress your body's natural function overall. Where, and I know you know this, like functional medicine tries to get your body to function better on its own and do it itself. So in no way are a lot of women being led down the path to work on really work on their health. And they're trying all these healthy lifestyle things. Do you know what I mean? I'm eating healthy. I'm not drinking alcohol. I'm exercising regularly. I'm doing all this stuff. I feel like garbage. Why do I feel like garbage? My cycle's irregular sometimes, or sometimes it'll be heavier, or I have these horrific mood swings. I can't sleep regularly. And no one takes into account one of the biggest trend, I'll call it a trend that I've been seeing recently-ish. I'm going to call it the after effects of the pandemic. Just the adrenal, insufficiency and cortisol regulation, cortisol clearance, all of that stuff, that so many women were like, okay, the world is imploding here. We're buckling down. We're getting our kids through school and programs and things. And then the world shifts and everything is opened up now. And, and now in the last couple of years, especially, things are really, I want to say back to normal, right? Like air quotes on that. And I mean, again, the Minnesota State Fair, the attendance numbers are like crazy high last year, this year so far, which is great, right? But that just lets me know, okay, yeah, people are really getting out there again. But for so many women, they took on and internalized so much of that stress for years.
Right.
And now we're seeing that crash, that fallout, the bottom falls out. You can't keep going with it. And so to see that severe impact overall and what it does to your body, where, oh, I made it through. It was stressful, but I could do it. Yeah, up to a certain point. If you don't come up for air, at some point, your body is really going to think it's drowning.
Right.
So that's, and women are so good, so good at just keep on pushing, just keep on going. Like, unless your arm falls off, you're going to keep going. And that doesn't help matters at all. So more often than not, I will look at somebody's report or I'll talk to them about what they have going on and say, hey, so I know you're loving exercise and you're really consistent. That's fantastic. But how about you don't work out for 2 hours every day? Because you're more exhausted. You're being underfed, undernourished, and your cortisol levels are not at a place where it can support the process of everything.
Yeah.
So that's what I see a lot of.
Yeah. And I mean, cortisol, I think, is a really, really good topic to kind of segue into, because it's really, I think it's confused by a lot of people. Like, I've seen, like, the anti-cortisol coach is like an Instagram handle, or, that is like, well, you need cortisol. It's just, as you mentioned earlier, just your ability to clear it and the levels you have. So I'm curious, I know there's nuances to everything, but are you seeing generally throughout the full day not enough cortisol being produced because of, maybe the system being kind of over ramped prior to that? Or is it more related to not enough cortisol when they wake up, or a combination of both? Like, what are some things you're seeing with cortisol?
Exactly what you just said. The combination of not enough when people wake up because they're not sleeping well.
Yeah.
So your body can't rest, repair, and do all the things it should do at night. So they're waking up in a deficient state. And then to compensate for that, it skyrockets and then has a really hard time being regulated throughout the day. That's very, very common. There was a gal, actually, was this a couple months ago now? It was so funny. Not funny, haha, but funny, just, sure. I was floored looking at her levels and talking to her about things. And I said, honestly, I'm so surprised you didn't check off anxiety or anything like that on your intake form. And she was like, no, I don't think I have anxiety. No, I don't think I do. Nope. And I was like, okay, just because your levels are so high and I can tell your system is struggling and you have every other symptom associated with this. But so I was just wanted to check in. Maybe you missed that, and marking that down, but just wanted, nope, I don't have anxiety at all. Okay. I was like, all right. And then when we did a follow-up call, she said, what you asked about with anxiety, she's like, it stuck with me. And I was really wondering about that. So she's like, I was talking to a family member, talking to my sister about this. And she said, yeah, over my test results, she asked if I had anxiety, and I don't have anxiety. And she said her sister looked at her and was like, are you kidding me? Are you joking right now? You have had anxiety your whole life. What are you saying? And so she's like, oh, maybe this is another thing. So in part of the process, she's like, so I took that to heart. I really reflected on it. And she's like, I've started therapy and I'm working through all these things and, really encompassing a whole different viewpoint on her health because she's realizing, oh, I've been functioning at this crazy high cortisol response level. And I don't need to do that. That doesn't feel good. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And for people out there, like, I think maybe we can unpack both. Like, someone has just cortisol's running rampant right now, like extremely high, overdrive, on at the wrong times. Like, what are some common symptoms if someone's listening to this and they're like, I wonder if that's me? Like, what are some of the top things that they might be experiencing?
Yeah. For a lot of women, it can feel like your body is completely not listening to any of the signals that you need. You're tired at the wrong times of the day, wired at the wrong times of the day, right? You're tired completely exhausted when you wake up or in the afternoons. And at night when you want to go to sleep and you're like, oh, I'm tired, I want to go to bed, but your brain won't shut off.
Yeah.
Just keep spinning. And then you can't get good rest throughout the night. And that leads to more irritability, brain fog. And of course, then you have the other physiological manifestation of that. You're not processing your carbohydrates or nutrients properly. You're not going to be building muscle properly. Your skin can even be really different, from some of those cortisol reactions where sometimes women are like, do I need another treatment or, maybe a different exfoliator, maybe a different skin cream. And it's like, I mean, you can, right? I love me some good skincare, but the best skincare is really, because collagen is supposed to be naturally produced, but if your cortisol levels are really off, you're not going to produce the same amount of collagen as you normally would, right? I mean, we've all seen people like that, I feel like, where you haven't seen somebody in a while and they went through a really terrible divorce or something or a death in the family. And
they look older, yeah.
And yeah, you're like, ooh, yeah, this took a toll on you for sure, right? Stress physically shows up on you. And yeah, one of the best, I think one of the best beauty products out there is regulating your cortisol. So just all of those things, if you take a list of some of that stuff that you're like, yeah, I'm struggling with a lot of these things. Is it this or is it that? Do I need a better vitamin? Do I need a better whatever? I need the newest probiotic out there. Okay, but sometimes it's just taking a break or, setting different boundaries in your life, sometimes for yourself,
right,
to help with that cortisol.
No, and I think it makes a lot of sense because we all can think of several science or physiology processes, biology processes, however you want to frame it, in some people we see. Yeah. And then when someone like how you just points it out to us, like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. So it's, hey, cortisol's up, not enough collagen, skin, blah, blah, it's just, I think, we've all seen these things. So sometimes it's just the self-awareness, the feeling is high. I notice in women more than men, and that's anecdotal just from my experience, but they're just a little more in touch with how they're feeling. But then the connection is low, where they just don't make the connection from, this, I feel off, but this and then this is probably what it is. Not that, everyone should just walk around self-diagnosing, but just kind of, because I get it, right? Like marketing and social media and all those things, a lot of utility, a lot of great things to that, but it's also can kind of pull people like, look over here, look over here, look over here. This is what's causing my issue. And so, I think that makes a lot of sense as why people are confused with it. Mm-hmm. I am curious, maybe if you could unpack a little bit of when it's cortisol's too low, what would that feel like? What does that look like if they just have really low production? What are some common symptoms related to that?
Yeah, I see one of the most apparent things for a lot of women is related to muscle tone and muscle repair, and then libido. Mm-hmm. And they're thinking, oh my gosh, is it my testosterone? It can be, right? Sure. But with it being so low, they just feel kind of flat all the time. And then oftentimes will need other things to kind of get through the day, having 5 cups of coffee, throughout the day, different types of stimulus to keep going, or relying on a straight adrenaline reaction to something for them to be productive, you know?
Right.
I had a friend of mine, actually, she messaged me, this was earlier this year. Yeah, like 6 months ago. And she was like, yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I realized I was using my pre-workout several times a day to keep going. And I was like, yeah, that's not, she's like, I thought it was better than coffee. I was like, no.
Just because it has workout in the name doesn't mean it's like healthy all of a sudden.
I
Yeah.
really got to get my laundry done. I'm going to do some pre-workout and then get going. What?
Some of those are so incredibly strong too.
Yes. Right. And I'm like, and she's like, yeah, I do this like 2 or 3 times a day, but then I can get everything done. And I'm like, okay. Yep. And then, I talked to her about doing a hormone test, and I was like, yeah, you're flatlined. Everything is just on the floor for you. Let's work on helping that first, instead of just getting through the day using pre-workout. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to kind of get into maybe some possible application, obviously step one is work with someone like yourself who, knows how to test for that and interpret it. But I'm wondering, one of the first things I wanted to introduce is like CAR, right? Like cortisol awakening response. Is that something that you use? And then if so, can you explain what that is and how it affects somebody kind of as it relates to cortisol and their overall health?
Yeah. And I love how you said it earlier, talking about like cortisol gets a bad rap.
Right.
Because, it's cortisol, it's bad. You need cortisol, right?
Sure.
There are certain, conditions or diseases for humans and animals too, that if you don't have the right amount of cortisol, or your body can't produce it. So just a side note, I have 2 dogs. Marie and Gary, they're English Springer Spaniels. So they're bird dogs. My husband hunts and fishes and stuff a lot.
Awesome.
So yeah. But Gary has Addison's disease. So his body does not produce cortisol. So I do a monthly injection for him, and he does a daily prednisone, pill, just because his body doesn't produce it. And then he has to be dosed specifically for when my husband takes them pheasant hunting. He has to dose his pills differently that day so he can make it through the day.
Yeah.
And Gary loves it. If you've ever seen video of Gary, in the field tracking, it's his life's mission.
Yeah.
To chase after those birds, right? So he would do it all day, every day, if his body could handle it. But
right.
But so cortisol is essential to have, and so I think we forget that, and because there's so many problems with it when it's not within the functional range for us. So getting back to your original question, the cortisol awakening response, you should have a certain amount of cortisol that is produced in the morning, and then it should just increase. It should come up to help you wake up, get things going, do things for the day, and be productive and turn on all these other mechanisms for your body. And without that, it feels very, and I've seen reports where it goes in the opposite direction for people. They wake up and then it plummets. That's going to make it really difficult to function throughout the day. So, they talk about the sunlight rising with the sun, and getting outside and everything, because that signals your brain to produce the right amount of cortisols, right? All those little things make a huge impact on your body producing the right cortisols at the right time, and including that cortisol awakening response to have that spike happen right away. I'm calling it a spike, but it's not too elevated, right?
Yeah,
it's
sure.
Coming up like it should, and that sets you up for success for the rest of the day. One of the best things I think you can do when you travel and move to different time zones and, all that stuff, is to rewire your system and use that cortisol awakening response to your advantage, so that you can have a productive day and not have too much jet lag and things like that.
Yeah. And what is, I guess, what would be a way someone could try to the best of their ability to delineate between I'm just not a morning person, or I just have lower cortisol, right? So I think there's kind of those people that they just pop up And it just seems like regardless of what's going on in life, they're up at, 4 or 5 a.m. ready to rock. That's just how they are. And then there's others where, they're up at 7, 8, whatever, and they struggle. And perhaps their cortisol is okay. Maybe it's not great, but it's okay. Is there anything you've seen like, different there that someone could delineate between the two, or what is that? Is there anything there?
Yeah, I know some people who are like, yeah, I'm not a morning person. I get up at 9, but when do you go to bed? Because you're guaranteed you're not going to bed at 10 p.m.
Sure. So a lot of it just goes back to the sleep timing.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. And to keep in mind, women need more sleep than men. Women need different types and more sleep at different times of their cycle than men do. Just for brain production, brain function, all that other stuff. And the body does very helpful things when you're getting to bed, at least by 10 p.m. for you. And, the growth hormone that's released, the detoxification process. One of my favorite things to show people is the Chinese medicine clock. Like you Google it, Google Chinese medicine clock, and it will talk about different things. So if you're waking up in the middle of the night, or if you're noticing, oh my gosh, it's 9 p.m. and I'm wired, what's firing off in my system right now at that time? If I'm waking up at 2 a.m., what's fired up in my system at that time? It's amazing the connections that you'll make by just looking at that clock.
Yeah, zooming out, kind of look at the full day or 2 days. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious too, and again, I know there's a lot of nuance to this question, but just kind of as a general, couple target questions I'd like to ask is, so someone has a low, cortisol awakening response, let's say, generally, if it's not too extreme, but it's kind of average low, if you will, and there's not some kind of other underlying disease state that they're in, roughly how long does it take for one to, right size their cortisol on average, would you say?
I love this question. I'm laughing because I hear this all day.
All the time. Yeah.
How long is this going to take? Is this going to be like, can I do this in like a week? How about a month? How about I've noticed people have a big improvement in their symptoms from working with that, helping like a cortisol awakening response improve, working on stuff, circadian rhythm stuff, shifting their, nutrient timing, adaptogen, influx, all that stuff. Great. Within a week, you can notice, oh, this is better.
Yeah.
I'm not all the way better, but I'm moving in the right direction. One of the things that I really like to focus on for women's health, because that's the world that I'm in, is to have women understand that our body's healing time is very different because of our hormonal cycles. Your body is going to shift and change in that healing process. Like, for example, there's just, women who get concussions, the healing time is longer than men who get concussions for the same severity and everything else, just because the healing process is different because of our monthly cycles. I don't want to say it's bad. It's just a different timing, right? So when you're adding something like this, keep in mind, if I hear this example all the time for women, they'll be like, I joined a gym, or me and my husband started this diet together and we're doing this healthy life together. And he's noticing improvements right away. And I'm having some improvements, but they're not the same. And I'm like, yep, because you live in a different body.
Right.
So to notice some type of improvement lets you know you're moving in the right direction. But because it's taking longer doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It just means that, again, your body you have 4 different bodies throughout the month. Right. So you're going to need more time to keep applying those things to see the fruits of your labor fully.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, because I think it's important too for us men to not be boneheads and listen, but then also women to be patient to educate us on how they are different. Because I know, like, from a biological standpoint, men's stress resiliency, is just different. There's just more in the tank to handle. There's more, because we're not as, I don't know how to word this, but because we're not maybe as in touch with the feelings, and we're kind of not as connected, if you will, we can kind of plow through more for longer. And then, like, even I was even looking at, I draw a blank on the stat off the top of my head. I don't want to be misquoted, but creatine storages. There's all this research on creatine, and women actually have less ability to store that, which makes sense. And then even if you look at from a food standpoint, we know like what's in the muscle, right? Like all of our electrolytes, our glycogen. Men just inherently from our biological makeup are going to have more glycogen storages. We're going to have a lot of different things that can respond when you're stressed. We all know fight or flight, anaerobic pathway to make energy, which is using glycogen for energy, not fat. Men are going to have just inherently more. All those things. And I think like even there's an interesting study out there about women and their dietary protein intake declining as they age, because as a percent of total calories, their protein is sufficient in the younger years. Cause let's say they're taking it, I'm making this number up, but 2000 calories, and let's say, 800 of it, or, 40% was from protein. I'm just making this up. But then as they age and some of those hormones start to drop off, let's say they're down to 1500 and they stay at that same 40%, they were still, they were okay here, but now they're here, even though the relative to the total, it's 40. And these are just those little things in women's health that I noticed from not only just, and when you start looking at the research, you're like, oh, there it is. So there's a lot. I mean, I just rambled off a couple, loose ones. I'm sure you can unpack more, but there's just so much. I think it's important for people to acknowledge that. But how many times do women give up on a plan or a program or a new health change because they feel like a failure and this and that, because they're comparing themselves to their male counterparts, right? So
100%. Yeah. And that's I love that you brought that up with the protein intake. I mean, especially into perimenopause and menopause for women need more protein to do the same job that protein used to do. Right. And that's where I feel like a lot, I have to eat less and move more, and that's how I'm going to lose weight. I'm like, yeah, but if you're in perimenopause, your hormone levels are dropping, your cortisol levels are not helpful for you,
right,
for where they really should be. You're going to need more protein, you know, and just like you said, exactly what you described, women will eat less and then have that smaller percentage of protein overall, which their bodies need more of. And women can't build lean muscle as quickly as men can typically, right? Men can put on, what is it, a pound or two a month? Is that the average? Is that something like that, right?
Sure. Yeah, somewhere around that sounds about right.
Yeah. And for women, it's a half a pound to a pound of lean muscle a month. This is focused on like, lifting weights and, getting enough protein and nutrients in and stuff like that. It's like a half.
Yeah.
Getting that lean muscle. And for women, it's only if cortisol is not getting in the way of that. So if your cortisol levels are off, cut that in half again. So you're going to only gain a quarter pound to a half a pound of lean muscle a month. Whereas for men, the stress response, just like you said, you're exactly right. It's so different. Men can be under stress, and yet I'm going to get 2 pounds of lean muscle. Like, good for you. No.
We were just made to do dumb things longer. Don't blame us. It's our biology. And that unfortunately comes out in the way we communicate and how we do everything else as well. But no.
It's just very different. So that's the one of the biggest frustrations I feel like women do, is that the whole lifestyle of what we live, especially in this Western world, is getting up earlier and pushing ourselves all day and expecting our bodies to have the same results as our, significant others or husbands or whatever, when we're just made differently, and some slight tweaks or shifts or different focuses can get you the result, but then giving yourself enough time to have that result come to fruition. Otherwise, you're cutting yourself short. So,
yeah. And I wanted to ask a follow-up about, obviously men are on a 24-hour hormone cycle. Women have like a 24 and a 28-day-ish, hormone cycle constantly changing there. What are some things in maybe different phases you see that women should be maybe considering from a nutrient standpoint based on what is going on hormonally in the body? Is there any common things you see that are pretty standard that they should have at different phases, or from a nutrition standpoint or micronutrient standpoint?
Yes. So glad you asked. So if it's okay if I answer this question,
sure,
in a 2-part way. The first part is just going to be kind of talking about macros in general. And I'll split the hormonal cycle kind of into 2 parts just to make it easier.
Sure.
Day 1 is the first day. And within the first few days, hormone levels are really low, but then it starts to rise and estrogen is more dominant or apparent. So during that whole, follicular phase. So, but estrogen really is that whole first couple of weeks, right? And then ovulation happens and things flip flop. Progesterone elevates, or it should elevate and be higher in that second phase, right? So estrogen does very different things nutritionally for the body. You're going to burn carbs and any type of sugars more easily. Your digestive system works differently, so it can absorb nutrients faster. You can absorb and break down more fibrous foods easier at that phase. And, you can get a regular amount of, protein and fat and things like that just fine. But in the progesterone phase, after ovulation, that luteal phase, your system actually needs more calorie, more protein, more fat during that phase. It's not as focused on burning carbohydrates as quickly and as easily as it was before. I mean, your muscle tissue repair slows down and everything else at that part. And your digestive system changes. It slows down naturally to absorb even more nutrient from the food that you're eating. And it just can't break down those fibrous foods like it used to because the enzyme production changes. And when you realize that and think, oh my gosh, yeah, for so many gals that they're like, yeah, I have these issues or I get these cravings or I'm so hungry and all this stuff. What's wrong with me? Nothing. You are supposed to be eating more at that point to fuel your body. Your body needs more nutrition, especially if you are stressed, especially if you're not getting enough sleep or rest, things like that. When we layer in the Eastern medicine piece of this, and this is what I love to talk about and educate on, is think about basal body temperature and how that changes throughout the month. So basal body temperature is lower days 1 through 14-ish, right? So it should be, right? And it should be consistently low, and then elevate and stay higher after ovulation in that luteal phase. So lower and then higher. So what I love to talk about, and this is kind of, I've cookbooks on this, a lot of stuff, but eating for your cycle is matching with your basal body temperature. So eating more cooling toned foods in the first couple of weeks and then warming toned foods in the second couple of weeks. And that does a few different things for the female body. One, it helps you work with that lower basal body temperature to help with hormone production and regulation. And it also goes along with what's happening naturally. So cooling foods are going to be like chicken, turkey, fish, more raw fruits and veggies. And again, your body can break that down more easily. In the warming phase there, which again, I call it warming because your basal body temperature is elevated.
Sure.
You're going to want to eat more warming foods, more red meats, more nutrient dense foods, and cooking your fruits and veggies more, breaking down that fibrous component more so your body can digest it and break it down easier and absorb it, right? You're not what you eat, you're what you absorb. So even using spices and seasonings differently, right? Even adding, so I have a protein shake in the morning, and in the first couple of weeks, I'll put, peppermint extract in there, just add in a little cooling layer to it. And then in the warming phase, I'll add cinnamon, warming and cooling, working with your system that way. And it's amazing at how this can help your cycle regulate, can help process those hormones better. And it really helps work with your system differently overall. And there's so many gals that will be like, yeah, oh my gosh, I love to eat salad for lunch, and I'll have a salad sometimes and it's totally fine. No big deal. And then a week later, I have a salad, the same salad, and I get bloated. I can't digest it. I feel like garbage. A different body ate that salad, right?
Yeah.
So working with that so differently helps us. And then again, knowing that, okay, doing that for at least a month can help you get in the pattern of it. But when we talk about overall hormone production from like the ovarian production of estrogen and progesterone, minimum rotation of that is 90 days. So you're looking at, 12 weeks or 3 months of applying shifts and changes like that to see the full impact on your body. So.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something I hear a lot, in this space talking about just women's health. And I think, and I don't know if you're experiencing this, but a lot of different guests I've talked to, and even some of the physicians that we work with, they'll talk about a lot of women coming in and not really tracking their cycle to even know kind of what's going on. Is that common in what you're seeing? And
yeah. A lot of times gals are like, oh, I don't know where I'm at, or I don't keep track of it. And okay, like if you are just working with your system and really listening, Oftentimes you'll intuitively lean one way or another, but it's so helpful to just keep track somehow and apply these things to really take advantage of the differences that you go through throughout the month. Yeah.
Sure.
But I do think a lot of this stems from, I just like, we're not educated on this, right?
Sure.
There's that one class in 5th grade.
Right.
Not helpful.
Yeah, I have a 13-year-old right now, and one in 5th grade and one in 7th now. So yeah, those classes are either starting or just finishing. So it's been interesting.
Yes. It's a very, because my kids are 19, 15, and 17 now.
Okay.
So yeah. I would always ask them, because they send an email home to the parents and they're like, oh, we're going to talk about this week, And I'm like, okay. So I'd ask them like, oh, what'd you learn? They'd be like, nothing. It was not helpful. They just said we'd have cramps. I'm like, okay. Sure.
Yeah. And so one of the things, just, someone's, let's say, really struggling with this, and they try to implement some methodologies to improve, whether it be cortisol or, there's a lot of good information out there. We'll pull it up shortly, but you have a lot of great resources, but they're still just not getting there, or maybe they've been so offline, if you will, or out of sync, that there needs to be more aggressive intervention. What are some testing that you like to do if needed?
Yeah.
And can you kind of walk through why certain testing you like to use, and why and when and all that fun stuff?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I love this question, because there are so many women who, when they're having a problem or noticing like, okay, I don't feel good, something's not right, I'm going to change these things and see if it makes a difference. And they're not doing bad things. They're just applying things, or like doing wellness things when their body is so far away from wellness.
Yeah.
Right. That you have to address, like you're in a hole and you think that you're, I'll use the analogy of like, okay, you're on the track, you're going to start the race. I'm going to start my wellness, race. I'm on the starting line, and the gun goes off, and here I go. You're not on the starting line of the track.
Right.
You are not even in the parking lot. You are 5 blocks down, around the corner, and in a ditch
with a flat tire.
Yes, with a flat tire. Yes. So
the analogy just got really dark, right? It's on fire too. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't have added on to it. Everyone's like, man, I'm depressed.
We're out of gas now.
I'm not listening anymore. No.
Yeah. But that's where we do these things that, again, they're not bad things. They're the wellness things. Those aren't going to help you get there. So we have to look at what's going on. And my favorite test, of course, is a Dutch test. That urine test, because you get to see what your levels are. It shows so much more than just a simple blood test. It shows you how you're processing those hormones. It shows you your cortisols and your adrenal function, and then some of those nutrient deficiencies and neurotransmitters, of course. It gives you this really beautiful rounded out view of what to target and what to start with. And that's where you can say, okay, you can continue with some of these, lifestyle changes that we're going to make.
Yeah.
But this is what's going to get you from 5 blocks down in the ditch to the starting line.
Starting line. Yeah.
To actually keep you there. So
now, are you seeing utility in, and I guess it's case dependent, but I am curious, because I'll just ask the question, I guess, like between cycle mapping and like a Dutch complete, do you use cycle mapping at all? And maybe if you do, if you could explain a little bit high level for those out there that maybe don't know what that test is, like, could you kind of explain it a little bit?
Yeah. Yes. So thank you for asking this, because I love using cycle mapping.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Dutch complete, and then they have the Dutch plus, which tests the cortisol weekly.
Cortisol. Yeah.
But the cycle mapping is really fascinating. And I really use that with gals that have struggled a ton with their cycle regulation, because, especially looking at fertility things and everything else. But that actually matches really beautifully with a lot of Eastern medicine, like the Chinese medicine study and training that I did for fertility. And a lot of that is actually just tracked through basal body temperature and pulse and everything. Again, it's Chinese medicine. So what I have women do is track their heart rate, their HRV, their basal body temperature, and then we'll do a cycle map, and it's incredible at how those biometrics line up.
How do they do? I'm just curious. How do you do basal metabolic or temperature and HRV? I'm just curious what you like to use for those.
Yeah, a lot of times people they'll have I'm not wearing mine right now, but they'll have like a Garmin or
okay,
something,
some kind of wearable.
Yeah, a wearable. They'll have some type of wearable
sure.
that they utilize for that. And then I like to have people track their own basal body the old school way. A thermometer, write it down.
Do you do like first thing in the morning, or how do you?
Yep. So first thing in the morning should be around the same time every day, but just wake up, don't get out of bed, take your temp, write it down, and track that. And then when we graph those results, it's just so fascinating to see the alignment.
Yeah.
Because in Chinese medicine, we'll see erratic basal body temperatures. It will spike and then come down, right? Or it will not rise, during ovulation, and then it'll come up a little bit and then wiggle out a little. There's just all these different patterns, and it matches with the cycle mapping, with the progesterone production. It's crazy how it happens every time. So,
yeah, and especially I will say, being a guy, women they're like, what? Like I would kind of almost freak them out a little bit, because I'm like, oh, do you? Right around, because they started tracking it, and they're like, right around this time and this time, and this is when I used to do some health coaching, and I'd say, do you have trouble sleeping on this day and this day, right? And like, yes. You have a second bleed around this time and this time? They're like, yes. I'm like, it's not that impressive. It's literally this giant graph that like is color coded for my brain. Like, it's super easy to read if you know what you're looking at. So I mean, to your point, it's like so pinpointed. It's you almost think like it's got to be harder than this. And I'll give you a quick side story, and then love to get into this a little bit more, or whatever you'd like to get into. But because one of the things I found with my wife, actually, and I was talking about this I think before we were recording, was blood serum, low estrogen production, lower testosterone. Started a very mild, very, very mild therapy. Prior to this, though, kind of had some estrogen dominant symptoms, and it's like, that's not really making sense. Working with a brilliant doctor at the time, but it just used blood, and the estrogen dominance skyrocketed. Like, I cannot do this. It was super like microdose therapy, and just cannot do this. Had to stop, right? And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So anyways, we found out, and this is the best analogy. I think I stole it from somebody else, smarter than me, but they basically, if you think of a sink, right? It's like, even if the water's barely on, like your estrogen production being the water, like it's just dripping, but the sink, the bottom is clogged. At some point, the sink's still going to overflow. And essentially where she had was a methylation issue, not a production issue. So we were trying to top down fix it, but the actual clearing of those hormones, the byproducts of them, were creating that kind of overspill, if you will, in the system, causing all those, regularities. And she's one that's a little more sensitive. If something's slightly off, it definitely manifests more visually, if I have it being the acne or stress in like the form of shakes, things like that. So not a lot of margin there. And I think that's important for people to note, especially women, to give them some encouragement, is if you're going back to the counterpart, your man, with a man, he's got such a larger amount of hormones. There's a bigger variance there. With women, it's so small, the nuance, the little. And I'm only say this from personal experience, where I've seen family members be like, I'm done. I can't take this med. I can't do this treatment. I can't do it. Even if it was natural, like a supplement or something, can't do it. It's too aggressive. It's like, well, we just got to lower it or whatever. But all that being said, I wanted to get kind of some of your input on like the methylation pathways, and what you see common, like methodologies you use if someone has more of like on the methylation side. I know you have some really, really good podcast content out there for people to check out too on that. But can you kind of give us like a high level overview of how that works?
Yes. Yeah, I would love to. And this is something that, again, with getting the testing done, just like you said, my favorite thing that women say when they get it done, and when you pinpoint exactly what it is, they say, oh my gosh, because sometimes I feel bad, like being like, oh, you got a lot of problems. Like, ooh, like, this does not look good. This is an issue. Like, sorry, this is not a good one. And they're like, no, this is so helpful. Thank you so much. I love seeing this, because they're like, I don't feel crazy anymore. I don't feel like I'm going crazy, right? Because exactly what you laid out of, well, if the estrogen's low, then adding a little more estrogen should help you feel better, but not worse. Why would it be worse? And it's all about the processing, the packaging up and taking it out, the pathways that aren't working correctly and supporting that overall to change the complete outcome of the results that you get.
Sure.
And it's night and day for methylation. So that's one of the big reasons I love doing the Dutch Complete, is because it shows that methylation process for estrogen right on page 3. Yeah. You get the numbers of it and then can target it specifically, as well as provide other generalized methylation support for the body, making sure you're getting enough B vitamins in, making sure you're dealing with stress levels, making sure you're, just opening up your lymph pathways and stuff like that. And then also getting enough rest. I find that especially when you're working on methylation pathways, if you're not at a point where you can really purposely add more rest, it's not an easy journey to go through. It makes it harder. Because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work if your body's not naturally a good methylator, to get that methylation going. It's a lot of work to do that. So, yeah.
And I'm sure there's maybe potentially some higher likelihood of having an issue from a genetic standpoint, but also like, what are some environmental or life changes that could lead one to having, poor methylation?
Yeah. Yes. So I'm going to use myself as an example for this. Because I did genetic testing, I don't know how many years ago, a handful of years ago, and found out that I'm not a good methylator myself, right? And one of the things that led to that really, and the ovarian cyst, the PCOS that popped up for me, and that was horrific to go through, was stress. It's that stress response that our systems are just differently able to handle that stress level, right? There's a certain threshold. And when you get past the threshold, not only do you have to work on the stress, but then you got to work on your methylation, right?
Right.
So genetics is absolutely a factor. So it can be helpful sometimes to learn what your genetics are.
Yeah.
To tailor towards that. But lifestyle wise, like the sleep, the rest, managing your stress, and then getting enough basic nutrient in. And then I want to say leading kind of the boring life. Not like keeping your routines the same.
Yeah.
Waking up around the same time, going to bed around the same time, exercising around the same time. It allows your system to get into a good rhythm and know how to recover from your activities. And that way, when there's a variance or stress or, life gets lifey, you have a good opportunity to recover from that. So I do love like dry brushing. I talk about saunas. Using red light, castor oil packs can be helpful. And then the only other thing that I would say with that methylation issue is to make sure your gut health is real good. Yeah. Yep.
No, it's a whole nother podcast in itself, right? Well, I think too, because you said something there, and I think sometimes people can tune out the list that you just listed off after you said the word rest, and like, I just need to rest. But I found, and I'm wondering if you found this as well, but like even restorative activities, like what do you do that's an activity? Because sometimes, I don't want to say it's bad, it just may not be the most effective, is just like, well, I'm just going to chill. Like sometimes you need to just chill, like just lay down, watch TV, whatever. But are you finding that having them adjust, either it's through a certain phase in life or even a certain phase in a month, to do more restorative type, have it be exercises or activities, things that make them leave, although they did some activity, they're leaving feeling more refreshed, rejuvenated? Is that something that's a good practical thing to implement, when they're working through some of these corrections?
Yeah. 100%. Absolutely. And I think the hard thing for so many women is that, I'm going to go do a workout and I'm stressed and I'm in my luteal phase and I'm not a good methylator, but it's not a workout until I've burned this many calories. Or it's not a workout unless I am sore walking out of the gym, or I've sweat through my shirt this much. That means it's a good workout. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We push ourselves so much. And I'm guilty of that myself, right? Like, as I was an athlete growing up, like, I was made to run, and you run till you puke and then you run some more. You know what I mean? It's just part of it. But that's not necessarily a healthy mindset to have when you're really looking at tuning into your body and realizing, okay, I'm going to do this activity. And the goal is not to punish myself as much as possible during this activity, but to get the good activity, to get my heart rate going, to have good recovery. And then the next day feel even better. Because if you're feeling like garbage later in the day or the next day, or you're not even fully recovered till several days later, it was too much, you overdid it, and you have to let your body really recover. So you're setting yourself up for success, right? That's the biggest thing I see, is that women are like, I started CrossFit. And I'm like, what?
Right.
I mean, not that there's anything wrong with CrossFit, but usually if you're going from like, let's do a couch to 5K versus couch to CrossFit.
Sure. No, and I think, I guess the thing I was thinking about when you're talking is I've never heard I'll just label it like a restorative practitioner, if you will. It could be a yoga teacher, it could be a massage therapist, could be fill in the blank. Gosh, there was a couple other chiropractor. Another friend runs it's like a robotic rehab center, and all of them say the same thing. I'm having a hard time getting my patients to come in regularly so they don't get messed up, but they'll come in when they're messed up. And so it's kind of like, look, life's crazy and all those things. And you just have to have the realization, in my opinion, at least for those of you out there that asked. So it's like to, realize like you're not living the same world your grandparents did. And so you have to have these proactive measures in your overarching plan for life just to kind of stay on the right path, if you will. And you're going to be a lot greater for it, a lot better for it. I just think of several examples come to mind as you were saying that, but
yeah. No, you're absolutely right. The amount of information and stress that we are bombarded with on a daily and minute by minute basis is insane compared to what it was 50 years ago, right? Like the blessing and the curse of the world we live in now. The everything that you can use, your information is at your fingertips.
Right.
Do we need it though all the time?
Right.
And again, thinking about how women process stress differently, how we like even viewing, things on social media and all this other stuff, how it will physically impact you and impact a lot of that stuff. So I tell, again, depending, but I've told women in the last several months, there are specific women where I've said, stop working out like that. You can go to yoga, you can go to walks, and you need hands-on work, somebody working on you. Mute these people on social media, block these people in real life, do these things because the constant bombardment of this stuff the stress comes in and it impacts your brain, and then it triggers that HPA axis every single time without fail. That's how your body's designed. But the constant trigger of that stress response it's not helpful. And you're not getting that recovery in there, that active recovery. So absolutely, 100% what you just said. I see that.
Yeah, I want to get back to some other more science-based questions, but just one thing when you were talking, I thought of though was like, it's almost like women's nurturing, supportive emotion / call to action in their design is on like overdrive in our society. And then conversely, what I've seen happen, I've seen a lot of women get a lot of benefit from this, which is a good thing, is you have these like New York best-selling authors, excuse me. I think his name's Dr. Henry Cloud. I think he's the one that wrote Boundaries. But there's these books about like boundaries and different titles. But if you Google the word boundary book bestseller, you'll see like 3 or 4 in the last 7-8 years. And they're, the way they're marketed in most of the customer demographic, not that men definitely could use it. We're just too stubborn sometimes to use it. But no, I just know, like, I just seen that emergence in the kind of mental health / I don't know what I'd call it, but other than mental health, just health field, because of, being opening themselves up to nurture, love, be kind to everybody, do everything they can. Great intention, but you were alluding to this earlier about setting up those boundaries to where if this is a toxic relationship or a toxic scenario or not a great work environment, that you're not excessively being like abused or something like that. I'm not, that's a whole nother category, but you're just not generally happy or in a good place when you're there. You're kind of under a lot of stress or not treated like a robot versus a human. Like these are all things that are compiling on people. And I think it's shown in the results of like people need this and want it from that standpoint. And then there's interventions like what you do too to work into that.
Yeah. I really think that there's what I've seen be the most helpful for women is if you're going to address both things at once in some capacity, right? Or if you're going to work on your physical health and you have a lot of cortisol issues, what's triggering that? And then you have to layer in something for that. Like, Boundaries book. One of my favorites is called Setting Boundaries Will Set You Free by Nancy Levin. Great book. And it's just adding in that layer of it to say, okay, I'm not, because otherwise you're going to try and put the fire out every day, but step into a burning building.
Right.
And women do have a great capacity for empathy. Wonderful. But oftentimes it comes at the expense of doing more damage than good for ourselves. And women are the drivers of health.
Right.
In our households, with our families, all that other stuff. And so I think it's so important for women to be educated and informed on this, and to view it as the whole scope. That if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm getting ovarian cysts, or I've got these issues, it's just my ovaries. My ovaries are just met. No, it's not just your ovaries. Right. Sorry, I'm yelling now.
You're okay.
Take it down. Take it down, Westie.
Well, it's a very Western way of looking at it, though, right? Or very where we just look at, and that's how our medical system's set up. I was talking to someone the other day about, cardiology. We have specialists and these tied to organs or certain systems in the body, but not that it's tough to, that holistic kind of view, if you will.
Yeah.
But
absolutely. Look at all of it. If stress is an issue, find the things that are making it harder for you and start either delegating or figuring it out. The number of times I tell women like, hey, hire somebody to help you with laundry, send your laundry out.
Right.
You have 5 kids, send your laundry out.
Right.
If you look at it, it's not that expensive. Or even for a period of time, even for the month, get a house cleaner. Have somebody, I know one gal, she was so determined to take care of the stress for her. She loved to cook, but she hated doing laundry. So she swapped with a friend of hers. Prepped meals, like dinners, just one meal a day for her friend's family, and her friend would do their laundry and bring it back folded and everything. And she said the first time her friend came over, dropped off the clean folded laundry, and she handed her a bag of meals, that she cried. She was like, I can't believe I didn't think of this sooner. It's just taken a weight off of me. There's so many ways around this that you can set yourself up for success in so many areas of just sort of thinking outside the box, or thinking that you have to do it all on your own, or that you figure it out on your own. That's again why I like testing. You don't need to have all the answers for yourself. The answers are out there. And when you get a test, it's black and white on the page, and numbers don't lie. So,
yeah. Well, I wanted to bring something up for everybody out there. Speaking of like testing, resources, all that good stuff, I just want to pull up a few things here. So let me just show some of the viewers out there a couple resources you have. So if you're listening on audio, so I'm just pulling up drbethwestie.com. So just the site, and then even going to the Instagram, if you select the link tree, there's a bunch of free resources here. I know we've mentioned earlier, we were talking about your free guide to eat with your cycle. And so that's for people, again, who are listening on audio, you can go to her Instagram, which will be in the show notes, and look at the book itself to get the free guide for that. And then there's the Female Health Solution podcast. So there's a lot of resources out there just to kind of get the ball rolling on things. And, I think it's obviously, this is more nuanced, complex things that you're sharing in these guides. So you definitely put a lot of time into it. So I'd encourage people to check out, your Instagram, your link tree, and your site, so they can kind of start to inform themselves. And then when they're ready to take that next step, dive a little bit deeper in that. So I'm sure is that kind of, you find that working through some of those resources and services, help if they're a little more educated on the why behind it, to kind of progress through and have more success in a therapy or a protocol, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the time women find me on, on the internet or whatever, they've been on this journey for a while.
Sure.
They've tried a bunch of things, which is sometimes helpful to say, okay, this sort of worked or this didn't. So you can kind of weed through some things. But that's where I love having resources, because so many women will try this out, or I'll get emails all the time of, oh, I started doing this, or I started eating for my cycle. I just got your cookbook, so I started adding that in, and that was helpful. I helped with my, heavy periods, but I still have these mood swings. What else can I do? Right? I'm like, oh, great. That's a start. Let's dive in more,
Sure.
That next step. Yeah.
Sure. What, just kind of as we're winding down here, I wanted to get just your opinion on maybe your input on a couple things, additional, but one of them is like, I often like to ask people, what is like a common women's health myth that's out there that you wish would just go away? Either one or two, if you can't pick just one, but what is it that you see, either people coming in and saying to you, or you see it online or whatever?
Oh man. Okay. I think the number one thing is just everything about, eat less, move more, and women will lose weight. And it's like, we don't respond the same way overall. That can be true for a certain point, for a gal in her early 20s with no other hormonal issues, but the way our bodies function is just totally different. That women need, a different, like, to really align with our hormonal cycle provides us a very different result in life. And there's two books that I always recommend when you're diving down this path of, oh, I want to learn more about this. Like, why is this like this? How come we don't know enough about our bodies or our hormones, or why things are the way that they are, right? So the first book is called Doing Harm by Maya Doonesbury. I usually have it next to me. I don't, but it's all about how research is done on men,
Oh, yeah.
all that stuff. So it's a fantastic book on that. Specifically related to health and medicine in the Western world. Doing Harm, that's the book. And then the other, and they're on Audible too, because they're pretty long books. Yes, thank you. Look at that, just right there. And then the other one is called Invisible Women. And that one is a book on like the data bias. So it talks about other things that are set up for, like for example, in cars, right? The seat belts and the seat belt safety factors and parameters that they have are set up for a male body. They crash test dummy male bodies. They don't do that for women. I mean, women have a different, shoulder to hip ratio, length of femurs, length of torso. So women get more injured, more severely injured in car accidents than men do, often not because they're not wearing seatbelts, but because that's exactly the book. Yep.
Cool.
Anyway, so just some other resources for a lot of people out there. If you're like, oh my gosh, why do I feel so crazy? Why do I struggle so much with this? I'm doing all these things. I've done this for years. I've tried this, that, and the other. What the heck is wrong? And why aren't these things working for me? I mean, these two books will give you the why behind the what on all of it, of course. And then to really dive into it for yourself, it's going to set you up for success moving forward. And the number one thing that I hear from women is they say, I wish I would have known this 10 years ago. I wish I would have known this when I was a teenager. And now, and for moms, because I've got 2 teenage girls myself, knowing this for our daughters and to change it for them, to know that, there's a lot of solutions out there that are within your control, within your grasp. And it just takes a different, viewpoint on it. Versus just saying, like I had told to me, Vicodin and birth control forever, it's, oh, I'm just going to shift and change and work with my body instead of fight against it. Yeah.
No, I was actually looking for something, and unfortunately I cannot find it. I'm not going to find it in time, but I won't keep everyone waiting. We did I think my wife did. It was like a carousel post where each slide had a statistic around what percent of men, like they were studying different women, female, protocols for women, and they used men as their subjects. And
yes, they have that in the book Doing Harm. In the beginning part of that book, they talk about that, where they study, because the top 3 killers for men and women in the US are the same, heart attack, stroke, and cancers, right? They're the same. But when they study the impact of heart disease and things like that, they do all the studies on men.
Men,
So they
yeah.
actually did, I can't remember the exact numbers on it, but it was like, they studied the impact of HRT, hormone replacement therapy,
Yep.
on heart attacks and heart disease and how that impacts women. And they did this study on thousands of subjects, and all the subjects were male.
And then you apply it to women, and it's just not.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
not.
And it's Dr. Stacy Sims. Her phrasing is "women are not small men." Right.
Right.
I want to give her credit for that. Because she does a lot of research with female athletes.
Yeah, and I really like her content. She's got a lot of good stuff.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes. So it's
going to drive me nuts because I had it. Oh.
Yeah.
I'll stop.
It is maddening, though. It is maddening to think about. Like, you wouldn't do a study on prostate cancer only on women. Like,
yeah, I came about it where, gosh, it was years ago. I walked into, there was an A4M conference, and I just happened to walk in, and the guy was, had a bunch of, I think it was a male doctor, but he was kind of advocating for the need for more, women's health type. And he was kind of talking about some of the progress, but the point of it is, I always remember being like blown away. Like, wait a minute, is this real? Like, I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. Like, some of the stuff he was saying was just so mind blowing.
Yes.
So anyways, I'm getting us off on a tangent. But hey, I really appreciate you jumping on. Like, we covered a lot of ground today. Yeah. I do want to, give the viewers out there, obviously we'll have this in the show notes and all the links and things of that nature. But just for those listening, where can people find you? What's the best way to get in touch? All that fun stuff.
Yeah. So I'm all over the interwebs. It's Dr. Beth Westie. Last name is Westie, like the dog. And on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and then my podcast is The Female Health Solution. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, for everybody out there, thanks so much for tuning in, and thank you again for joining us. And if you guys have questions, as always, comment, put them in the comment section, reach out to us directly. We'll do our best to answer them, but then we'll also tag in Dr. Beth and her team if there's something specific for her. We'll make that connection for you. So thanks again for joining us, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you till the next time. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.